how you think impacts every area of your life. Now, that would seem self evident. Certainly, you would agree with that statement on its face. But how you think, more specifically, how you think about yourself, the things that you tell yourself, good, bad, or otherwise, the truths that you speak, or the lies that you allow to come in, maybe that deception that you've grabbed a hold of, all of those thoughts impact every single area of your life. How you act, how you work, how healthy or not healthy your relationships are, all of those flow from what you believe about yourself. But how do we think about ourselves in the right way? How do we judge whether or not we are who we're supposed to be, whether we're valuable or lack value? What do we base that upon? Today on this show, I've got a great interview with a guest that I'm excited to share with you because we discuss exactly that. We talk about not only the lies, the deception that we believe, but how we can move beyond that into the life that God created us to live. Looking forward to sharing that with you in just a moment. Hello and welcome to the March or Die Show today. Very glad to have you joining me. As always, glad that you are here. And I'm getting ready to share a wonderful interview with you with a guest that I actually interviewed a couple of days ago, and just getting to really talk about these things and process them in my own mind, and excited to be able to share that with you. Before we get there, I do want to remind you, if you have not yet subscribed, do that right now. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. That would be fantastic. And you want to. So go ahead and subscribe right now. And then take some time, go over to YouTube. You can find my YouTube channel, and I would encourage you to check that out as well. Use my name, Jeremy Stolniker. Search for that on YouTube, and you'll find all of my video content. This show is there. Other content is there as well. And then finally, and maybe I should have started with this because this is the one place you can find the rest of it, go to my website, Jeremy Stolniker, jeremystolniker.com, and you can find all of that there. I have a great interview that I'm excited to share with you with a guest who has a lot of experience in so many different areas, and he's going to help us think through how we think. It's amazing how much what rolls around in our head impacts the other areas of our life. I've said this a lot. You've heard this before. Belief dictates action, and belief dictates action. What you do is directly connected to what you believe. But I want to go a little bit deeper, and that's what we talk about today. What you believe about yourself directly connects to how you act, to the things that you do. What you believe about yourself, the truths you tell to yourself and about yourself, the lies that you believe, all of that, what is rolling around in your head about you? Am I valuable? Am I not? Am I loved? Am I not? What is my purpose? Do I have one? Am I pursuing that? What you believe about yourself will either positively or negatively impact every other area of your life. And we have the opportunity to talk about that today with my guest, Adam F. Jones. Adam is a speaker, author, leadership consultant. He is a United States Army veteran, the founder of Kingdom Operatives, and has recently written a book that he is pushing out right now, and I encourage you to get a hold of, Weapons of Mass Deception. Weapons of Mass Deception. There are some lies that we tell ourselves, some lies that we believe, some deception that's taking place that can really prevent us from moving forward. That's why I wanted to talk to him on the March or Die Show. We talk about moving forward. We talk about what it looks like to take the right steps when obstacles pop up, when difficulties come. How do we move beyond that? That's what we talk about on this show, and that's what we're talking about today. I hope that you appreciate this interview as much as I did with my guest, Adam F. Jones. Adam, thanks for joining me, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Jeremy, it's good to be here, man. Thank you.
There are a lot of layers to your story, and we were just talking about this just a minute ago. I'd love to start with just kind of your story. So we'll get to the book, Weapons of Mass Deception. Very interested in not only what exactly that means for our audience to understand it, but who you're writing to, your expected outcomes on that. So that's one piece. But your life story, pilot in the Army, a lot of other stuff. Start at the beginning and get us to kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, I grew up in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and went to Penn State Army ROTCs, where I commissioned out of was the ROTC program. Penn State was awesome. I loved it, but the Army moves around after that, so
Yeah.
we moved around to DC area, Colorado, and then now I'm back here in the Pittsburgh area. In kind of in college, I always just knew I was going to do the military thing, and even before that, as a kid, same thing. You just know, right? Like your family
Yeah.
knows at a very young age this person's going to join the military, and that's kind of my story with that. So that being said, I was 12 years old doing what was called the Civil Air Patrol, which was pretty cool, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
flying
yeah.
planes and wearing uniforms and all that kind of stuff. So that helped develop me, and really, I would say, got me into the military culture at a very young age, right? To where you're starting to learn how to operate. You're learning military bearing and all that kind of stuff as a kid. So then, I commissioned as a military police officer, but lucky for me, I commissioned into the National Guard, and in the Guard, you can kind of move around every once in a while. So I was a Guard MP, and then always wanted to be an aviator. I mean, my entire life, wanted to be a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, and got a bunch of no's along the way, and eventually one of those no's finally is the final no, right, for at least quite a while. So I became a Black Hawk pilot eventually. Just kept kind of beating in that door, hoping it would one day open up, and it did. And got to accomplish my childhood dream, thinking that would have really given me total like fullness, right? Like I got everything I've ever wanted. Now I'm married. I'm a Black Hawk pilot. I'm an officer in the Army. Like what's better than this? And I was just really surprised to see how my confidence didn't really increase, kind of stayed the same. And overall, I just never felt like I was good enough, right? Even with those achievements. So now I'm a father of two girls. They're amazing. Married for over 9 years now, and we have a very strong marriage. But as people will learn in the book, that is not the case a couple years ago. So,
Yeah. What were the influences? So you said your family just knew that you were going to go into the military. You knew that. What were the influences that caused you to know that and your family? Were there family members that you were trying to follow, or something else? What motivated you to go that route?
Yeah, I have a pretty big military family, right, where my uncle is a lieutenant colonel, and all my uncles and aunts, I feel like, were all in the military at some point. So it just influenced me, but I wasn't around them a lot. I saw them from a distance and just thought it was the coolest thing. And then, man, what sealed the deal? Black Hawk Down, right? Seeing that movie, I was like, I'm in.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
My mom's like, what?
Man, I watched that movie in the theater, and it caused me like serious panic. That was a crazy movie. It's so funny because then we ended up in Baghdad, Iraq in 2003, so shortly after that movie came out. And I felt like I was having flashbacks to the movie when I was in combat, not the other way around, which is weird, right?
Wow.
It's an incredible movie.
Man, yeah, I'm 33, so I was like a youngin' when that came out, and I was just like, this is awesome. I want to do that. And my family was like, what you just saw a helicopter get shot down.
That's what you want to do.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really glad I did it. I was in for 10 years, so.
So the reason I ask about those influences, how did those influences either add pressure to you later on, or just frame how you looked at yourself? So a lot of people who are in the military feel inadequate. I mean, it's funny because it's the most confident organization on the planet, right? But the individuals in that organization often are very insecure, look at themselves as not good enough. Did those family influences have anything to do with that? Indirectly, I'm not blaming them, but just that pressure from, I have a lineage of this, or was it something else that caused you to feel that way?
I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've had my faith. I've always had a relationship with Jesus. I've had all that, right? But I saw Jesus from a different lens. I saw God the Father from a different lens. I thought I had to perform consistently in order to be important, in order to be loved, and in order to be impactful. And I think that gave me a healthy obsession with ambition, like an addiction to ambition. Right. So I was going to beat myself up. No one else needed to do it, to be honest.
Right. Right.
I have great parents. For me, I am a vocal person. I like to communicate a lot. I like feedback consistently, and there's times in my life where there's people that I wanted feedback from that I didn't get it. And I was like, man, like I'm really trying to earn someone's approval. And the secret is it's never going to be enough, ever. No person can ever fill you with their words or with their actions or their love or anything. So I had to learn to receive a new source for my life. And it wasn't just a relationship with Jesus, but it was actually seeing the Father in a way where I'm his child, I'm his son, and I'm loved and accepted, right? So I'm not trying to get too deep into this, but that was really key for me. I think a lot of this was not my view on people, but my view on God.
That's really interesting. What changed that for you? Was it a person? How did you come to that realization? Identity is such a huge piece, right? And we talk about this often in our programs at Mighty Oaks. I talk about this, in counseling and just trying to help other people. That so often it's a misplaced identity, and particularly coming out of the military, our identity is our service. Our identity is our job. If you're a pilot, right? It's the same joke that we make about CrossFitters. How do you know someone's a pilot? Because they told you, right? That's how you know.
Yeah.
Because so much of our identity is wrapped up in that. Coming out of the Marine Corps, it's the exact same thing. Like, what do you do? I'm a Marine. Who are you? I'm a Marine, right? That's my whole identity. And for a lot of people, there has to be a catalyst, and often it's not a good catalyst that drives them to understand. There has to be more. How did you come to that understanding of who God is and why that's important in your life?
So, great question. Very important thing. It's probably one of the most important things I could ever share with anyone, to be honest, right? This is really what I'm focused on, is helping people receive the proper image of God. Not just who man says he is, but who he says he is, right? Because there's a difference.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And for me, I talk about this in the book Weapons of Mass Deception, which just came out, right? I talk about how there's 4 weapons of mass deception that are hidden in your heart and spreading into your home. And I'm sure maybe we can talk about this a little bit more, but one of the weapons is the pressure of performance. Okay, so the pressure of performance wants you, like, this is a deceptive weapon hidden in our heart based on, many things. It could be the way we were formed by society or a culture. Like, it seems like a lot of us military people have this one in common. So is it possible that a little bit of that was formed from that influence, right? Because we didn't have a healthy perspective of understanding there's a certain way you perform in the military, but there's a different way you perform at home, right?
Right.
And we can't be the exact same each time. I can't go into my unit, be all intense and stern and serious, and then come home and be the same way and think it's going to work. It's not long term, right? So the pressure of performance was really destroying my life. I thought that my worth, my value, all those things were tied up into my measurements. And the recent measurement would determine that. So if I had a really good measurement as a pilot, meaning I crushed a check ride or something, feeling great today, right? If I'm underperforming, well, I feel like crap. And we can't be that way, especially in a world right now that's so, there's so much instability. We have to learn to be steady with this, right? And not allow our emotions and our value to be determined by those things. So that was key. Realizing a weapon was hidden in my heart. That came from someone telling me that. Now, the language wasn't there, but, I really found like a spiritual father type of figure, right? We see that with like Paul and Timothy. And this man, Israel, who wrote the foreword for my book, Israel goes, "Hey, Adam, man, the military is really great." Like, 'cause he was in too, but he was in he was in South Africa. And he said, "It's great, but also there's some things that you were taught that are hurting you today." And I was like what? And it was so interesting. Like, as we started to talk about it, it was as if something started to happen spiritually, right? Like something was lifted off of me very quickly. And his point was the pressure of performance is really driving you today. And it's driving you into a pit. You constantly feel like you're letting everyone down. And you just keep holding it all back. And what I didn't realize is that from that type of conversation, what he was doing is he was starting to reveal to me, as someone who's a man of God, he was revealing to me, this is how the Father sees you, right? Do you know it has nothing to do with your performance? Do you know, like, one thing I talk about is the kingdom is where we belong, but his righteousness is why we belong. It doesn't have to do with us. We don't have to perform for this. We just belong there because he says we do. And we've accepted that. So anyways, I think that's a little bit for us to go off of there, but that was really key.
It's huge. I try to make the point, particularly when I'm speaking on the topic of leadership, that there's a difference between doing leadership and being a leader. And so often we, particularly coming out of a leadership heavy environment like the military, we can do leadership in that environment and we can perform and we are recognized for it. And, people tell us what a great leader we are. But that's just doing leadership, because we try to then take those same tools home or into another workplace outside of the military, whatever the case, and it doesn't work. We become frustrated, often become angry, and then try to get back into an environment where we knew what we were doing. When really the problem is not either of those environments. The problem is that we thought that what we were doing was who we are, and now we're mad at everyone else for rejecting us. When really what we were doing was important. There were skills that are necessary, those tactics, techniques, and procedures, but that's not real leadership. And I think if your identity is not tied to something bigger than your job, if your understanding of leadership is not bigger than this one thing I do, then you will always be frustrated and angry, and you can't perform well because what works here doesn't work there. And coming back to that understanding of who God is and the fact that I'm accepted because of God, not because of myself, that changes that entire conversation, because really it doesn't have anything to do with how good or bad I am anywhere. It's about what God created me to be. But what's interesting in all of that, this is the point I guess I'm trying to get to, when people talk about being driven by performance, I think that conversation sometimes hits a wall, because we could say, okay, well, if performing is what drives you, then why isn't your marriage amazing? Why aren't you an incredible parent? Why aren't you succeeding in your job? If that's really what's driving you, then how does that lead you into that hole that you were talking about? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, spot on. So the one thing I talk about in the book as well was the movie or the show called The Last Kingdom, right? And King Alfred, I think you read that part, right? Where King Alfred and how I gave an example, like if the king decides to abdicate his area of responsibility, which he could be like, hey, you know what? Actually, I'm the king of this whole kingdom here, but I want to go where I'm appreciated more, where people don't complain.
Yeah.
Think about that for a moment, right?
Yeah.
I want to go here because they get excited when I show up. And I feel really good about myself as I go do this. And a huge distinction I think that I had to make is that I was being extremely selfish, but I was calling it selfless, right? Well, I'm sacrificing my time away from my family for things like ministry, for business, for impact. And I didn't really see that my greatest area of impact that God assigned me a unique position in was being a husband and a father, was being a neighbor, was being a brother. I mean, it's these things. Like, I can't be replaced in those. Now, I can always go out and make an impact somewhere, but let's not think that that's a greater impact because it's more people. We don't know what our kids are going to do one day. We don't know who our kids are going to become. And I've been assigned as their father by God. That's his child, right? So that's pretty powerful, right? When you really get that. So for me, I think distinguishing between the difference of an ambition and an assignment. Your ambition is great. I mean, I think all of us probably on here are pretty ambitious, right? Like that's probably what made us do well in the military. But ambition must be aligned to assignment and provide availability for more, right? So you can't just fill up your whole schedule with ambition. What about assignments? Like I'm saying, God-given assignments that come with a supernatural empowering grace. Jeremy, I had no idea what I was doing as a new father, and it just kept getting worse. I started to become a very tense husband as well. And my wife goes, Adam, where are you? And I'm like, I'm right here. What do you mean? I'm right here. What are you talking about? And she's like, no, you're not here. And you don't even want to be here. I don't know where you are, but you're not here. And I'm thinking, dude, I am fully here right now. Like I am sitting in this chair at dinner with everyone. What are we talking about? And what I didn't realize was availability is not the same thing as presence. And I had to learn how to really become present in each situation. And if there's an assignment coming, then I got to go. Like I'm not saying stay home all day on the couch. I'm saying know the difference between an assignment and ambition. They're both good, but one takes priority.
That's good. Man, there's so much good there. I was just going through this mental exercise yesterday. I have these conversations with myself all the time, particularly when I'm running, right? Like, I just have these long conversations with myself. And there is particularly in the world of messaging to men, and there's a lot of that now, there is this message that is very popular, and it goes something like this: you need to be more dedicated, more committed. If you just worked harder and got up earlier and whatever, then you could succeed. That conversation then balloons out into this conversation about focus and about passion and about sacrificing other things in your life to get what you want. And the reason you're not good at whatever, the reason you're not the best, is because you're just not focused enough or passionate enough. And there is an aspect of that I understand. Certainly, if you push everything else out in your life and focus on one thing, you're probably going to be really good at that one thing. But it is so easy to mix up my ambition to be good at that one thing from the calling that God has placed on my life. And I'm a husband, I'm a father, I run an organization, I have other things that I'm involved in. I want to be good at all of those things, but I understand that I will never be the best at a singular thing if I'm working in different areas. How do you navigate that? How do you navigate, I want to be a great husband, I want to be a great father, I want my business to run really well, I want to be a good author, I need to go on the road and speak. All of those things that you do, how do you, number one, make sure that you're staying on assignment instead of just following or pursuing an ambition? So how do you maintain that? And then how do you think about, I don't love the word balance, but how do you think about balance in those areas? How do you think about, I want to be great at all of these things, not just singularly focused on one thing to the exclusion of everything else?
Yeah, well, it's the $1 million question, right?
So let me put it this way, because I'm not trying to ask you to answer a question that no one can answer, but how do you deal with that? How do you think about those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, one thing, I'm an executive coach, so I work with like senior business leaders and CEOs who are working on scaling their company, and they like to use these military tactics and stuff to build up their team. Right. And then I bring the kingdom with me as well, right? They're going to feel peace. They're going to feel joy. They're going to feel the benefits of who God is as well. And with that, one thing I'm talking to with a current client is I said, hey, from now on with your wife, I want you to transition with intention. And he's like, what do you mean? And I gave him this big breakdown of how I had to discipline myself. So this doesn't have to do with passion or anything. It just has to do with a choice. So I'm going to give everyone who's listening today just a choice. And you might be like, that's too much. Well, do they deserve better? Do they? I mean, can a better version of you show up today, whether that's at your workplace, your business, your family? If so, here's something that's really helped me. I just call it transitioning with intention. I learned this from like Brennan Bouchard, who's a big high performance coach, and it's changed my life. Here's the context. Basically, one day I was telling his team how I felt like my wife would say, you don't listen. You never listen. You're never here, right? And this was before everything started falling apart. This was the whole marriage, you know what I mean? You don't listen. And I'm like, I'm trying. What are you talking about? And what I realized is my mind was doing other things, right? My mind was finding other things to think about during that time, or just nothing altogether. Either way, wasn't listening to the details. So I had to learn to transition with intention, because I said to him, she tells me this, but I don't get it. When I come home from Army, all I do is I show up, I turn my brain off, and I walk in the door, and then I'm there. And he goes, wait, what'd you just say, man? What'd you say, bro? You turn your brain off? And I was like, yeah, like to relax. And he's like, no. You don't turn your brain off. You have to set intention. You're going into a new environment. It's not time to relax. It's time to be who you need to be in that moment. So now I teach that to everyone. You find a trigger in your life, and you attach a transition to it. So like for me right now, how I'm on this podcast with you, well, eventually I'm going to walk up the stairs and touch the door. And when I touch the door to open it, that can be a transition moment where I go, all right, I'm about to see my kids, which I'm not right now, but in a couple hours I will. Who do I need to be in this moment? Who do I choose to be, right? And it's super intentional, where you're just like, man, I'm going to be a father who loves, I'm gonna be a husband who helps out with the dishes. Ready, go. And it's just like that. And it sounds so maybe rigid or mechanical, but it really does work. We got to tell our mind these things, right? So that's been really key for me.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And it goes back to how you started this part of the conversation with what has God called you to do, and understanding that. We get so focused, I think, on what we want to do or what someone else is doing that we'd like to do or be a part of, that intention beginning with what does God want me to do. We move right past it. I have the ability to do that, to move beyond where God wants me to be and to do something God doesn't want me necessarily to do, and to push aside all of those other very important areas that He has called me to. Let's talk specifically about your book, and that's really why we were supposed to start talking. Well, that's what we were supposed to start talking on, and I got sidetracked. Speaking of intention, I get sidetracked. Weapons of Mass Deception. Talk about the title for a second. I think it's a great title. I've almost said it wrong several times, and I think that's probably part of the design. But talk about that. Why that title?
People always have to slow down when they say it, and I'm like, all right, are they gonna get it? That's all good either way. So yeah, I'll jump right into it because the title is, man, is it meaningful. But I learned to follow the peace. So just to answer kind of this, to wrap up what we were talking about here, if I don't feel peace, I don't go. That doesn't mean I won't enter into a chaotic situation, but do I feel peace in my heart? Right? Because that's what we're taught to do as sons and daughters of God, right? Is to follow His peace, that His peace will lead us. So now if I feel like really hurried and restless and like I feel like I'm trying to force a result, I know it's not Him. I know the grace isn't going to be there. And I'm just going to birth an Ishmael, right, instead of an Isaac. In this example with Abraham, right? I'm going to force something, and maybe something will come out of it, but it's not going to be as good as what he had. And I'm telling you, Jeremy, I have disciplined myself to that. It is so hard, but it's so much better. Because really what it means is like, hey, abide in me. Hey, this might be your time to rest, Adam. Go lay down on the grass outside and do nothing. But I need to get more business clients. Don't worry about that. There's no peace there. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, it feels like lazy, but when you get used to it, you realize it's not. So, and this is, I think that's one of the greatest lessons I could share even with the book, right? So a weapon of mass deception, I've talked about before, is hidden in your heart and you're suppressing it, but it's spreading. What's so cool about weapons of mass deception is it truly is, I think, one of the greatest, this is not a cool part, but it is one of the greatest threats to our world, right, that we know. Because, I mean, this is the stuff you can't see that's destroying lives everywhere. But here's the cool part. It's not about you. The coolest part of this whole book is it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about them. And what gives us our greatest courage to move forward and to deal with this and to deal what's going on inside of our heart is what I call shift focus. See, as a business owner, for a while I was intimidated to like talk to different clients and start up different conversations. As in the military, same thing. You know, hey, this is a challenging situation. I don't know if I got it in me. And I learned to shift focus, which this is going to resonate with a lot of people here, right? It's just, hey, turn my head for a moment, look at something else that needs me to go, and then let's go. My wife needs me to be healed. She needs it. She deserves it. She's a child of God. Why would she get a husband who's so angry, who's so tense, who's so stressed out? How's that fair to her? It's not, right? So shift focus, Adam. Get over yourself. This is bigger than you, right? So a weapon of mass deception, and I've identified 4 that they're not even focused on you. They're just inside of you. And this might sound like a little like too, I don't know, mystical or whatever. I get it. I'm a deep person, so I think really deep about stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm carrying an influence. When I show up, a situation can change just based on the vibe, right? The kingdom is sound activated. There's a lot of things that we can't see that influence what's going on around us. And if I'm being consumed by the pressure of performance and I'm constantly on edge and I'm tense, what do you think our home feels like? Same thing. Yeah. Tense, stressed. Yeah. There's no peace in this home. Yeah, because of your heart. And that's okay. You're just being attacked, right? And like I say that with a smile because like that's pathetic. That's just the enemy. That's just culture. That's things trying to stop you from being aligned to God's greatest assignments for you. That's it. It's the desperate defense of the enemy. See, one thing I always like to distinguish between, you are not being attacked. I know I said you're being attacked. You are the attack. You're hitting the enemy. The kingdom is forcefully advancing. The kingdom is constantly expanding, right? So I want to correct myself because I want to distinguish between that. So because you're a threat and because you have a certain culture you've come from and a way of operating, you can attract this type of weapon because it wants to hurt other people through you, through the leader's influence. Does that kind of make sense so far?
Yeah, it makes great sense. And it's funny how just having someone point that out to you can change the entire conversation of your life, right? Understanding two things. One, it's not about me. I say that so often, and then I have to say it to myself because it's really easy to tell other people how they should live. It's hard to live that way. But that, and then understanding, because you're advancing, there will be resistance. Just understanding that, just knowing that changes everything. I was working through something the other day, and just personally, and I had to be reminded that what I feel does not necessarily reflect what's true and what's real. And knowing what is true and what's real, it changes my ability to function in this battlefield environment, to use the analogy. So helpful.
That's really good. Yeah, like for me with understanding in Isaiah 9, right? I think it's Isaiah 9, 6 and 7, right? You see that the kingdom, I'm trying to summarize this. The kingdom is constantly expanding, which means if we really believe that, then that means peace and joy should be pushing out against darkness, right? That the presence of the kingdom should be evident in our lives more and more each day. So what's so great about that is then you realize, well, you're actually the threat. You're not being attacked. You're the threat hitting defensive positions. Man, this is the coolest. I keep saying the coolest thing. I must be having fun today.
There's a lot of cool things. A lot of cool things.
This is cool. This is cool. I had no room at all to talk to anyone about their marriage or kids or anything. I sucked at all of it. And then now it's become a huge strength of mine. And now people reach out to me for the help. Hey man, I see how you and your wife are. And hey, I see how your relationship with God is and your kids. Do you think you could coach me a little bit? And I'm like, yeah, we could talk about that, right? So they go to my site and book a call and all that kind of stuff. But it's so neat because in that, it's perfect evidence of what I'm saying. I was the threat, right? The enemy did not want me to share what God was bringing into my life about the goodness of God, right? It's the goodness of God that leads men to repentance.
Right.
So and we love him because he first loved us. All of this is about receiving the proper image of him and who he is, and then we reflect it out. And most of us are showing an image that is inaccurate, not only of God, but of his design, his people, right? We might have had a dad in our life who was very strong or abusive, or maybe just wasn't intentional at all, right? Didn't talk at all, didn't speak into you. And then that's what we start to reflect. Right. So get a new image of a dad, right?
Yeah.
And then give your dad full grace. I don't know why I'm going this direction, but give your dad full grace. Accept people for who they are,
Yep.
I have healed so much just by saying, that's just who they are. Who am I to change them? That's not cool, right? They can't be perfect. So why don't I just get the perfect image and then focus on him?
Yeah, we get so caught up in what other people are doing or have done. And I get that. I mean, that shapes our thinking and our understanding, our view of the world. But that's why you have to get back, as you said, to a proper view of God. It's funny how in life we want to receive the grace of God. We want other people to give us grace, to look at us and say, well, they've been through this and this is why they're acting that way or whatever. But we're so quick to cut other people off, right? Well, my dad must have acted that way because he hated me. Well, maybe he had something going on in his life, or maybe he had an improper view of God and family and those kind of things. So you're exactly right. Just releasing that. It's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be fully aligned to what God created me to be, and allowing other people to do the same. I define forgiveness that way sometimes. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness is releasing others to be accountable to God. I can't hang on to them, right? They're not accountable to me. But I become frustrated when I make them accountable to me. I need to open my hand and let them be accountable to God just as I am. And man, that changes so much. I was thinking when you talked about, we're going on the offense, I was thinking about that passage in Ephesians 5 where so much instruction is given to both the wife and the husband on how those roles work, and explaining in that passage, because it's about marriage, but it's not really about marriage, that the marriage relationship is an earthly example of Christ's relationship to the church, right? So what happens in marriage should reflect who God is and how he loves us. And so the devil has to go after marriages. Why? Because the marriage is the threat. A good marriage that reflects who God is a threat. And that is why there's so much conflict. That's why there's so much friction. That's why there's really so much destruction in marriage relationships. But man, you're exactly right. When we're doing what God wants us to do in a way that reflects who he is, we're the threat now. And as we are the threat, there are going to be challenges and deceptions. So I love that image of we're going on the offense. That's really why there's so much resistance and pushback to what we're doing.
Yeah, we focus a lot on that in like Kingdom Operatives. Like sometimes I'll run like small trainings for like a select group of people. And that's a big thing that people have to understand is like, hey, you carry his image, right? He's inside of you. Like a huge saying that really has helped me is that there is power in your presence and you are positioned for purpose. So, in the military, we think it's over when we get out, right? And like, I don't have my uniform anymore. I don't have my rank. I'm no longer a pilot. I didn't think people would accept me for who I was. Like, pilot is what made me cool, Jeremy, right? Like, you're a Black Hawk pilot? Dude, you must be cool.
It's what allowed the rest of us to make fun of you guys, too. So, whatever, there's two sides of the same coin, I guess. But yeah.
Don't tell the civilians. But exactly. So I had to lead with it because it got me accepted by them, right? Quickly. And now it's like, I'm Adam. And like, Adam's like Adam's neat too. You know what I mean? Like I've fully accepted just Adam, that God has created a person named Adam, right? And like I was in him before the foundations of this world and then sent for this time. So the military was a training ground for a bigger part of my life. Like I just want people to zoom out for a second. Huge, big picture. You learned a lot of really great things in the military. Maybe you learned some things you don't like. That's fine. Remove those. But the stuff we did learn, like we learned how to be disciplined. We learned how to fight. We learned how to, make quick decisions. We learned how to communicate efficiently. Not necessarily how civilians do. Sometimes it doesn't work that well anymore, right? Like you can actually annoy them if you talk like we used to.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So it's training. You're being trained for something so much greater than, dare I say, even a national flag. Like we're talking about the kingdom here.
Yeah.
It's bigger than a country.
That's good. Man, that's good. Who are you writing to? When I've written a little bit, and when I sit down, I always have an audience in mind. This is the person I want to pick up this book and read it. Who are you writing to? Who was that in your mind?
Yeah, I didn't think I would get accepted by military. Like I just didn't think it just didn't cross my mind that this would be for the military. I knew it would be for military-minded people, mission-minded people. Right. And I wanted to show that there was actually, we have some common ground here. Like right now, the 1% of people who've served, give or take, right, and the 99%, the 1% wants the 99% to become like them. And then the 1% just stands, because we're grumpy all the time and we judge everyone and all that. But we got to adjust. And I just had on my heart for this book, like, let's show how we actually do have a similar struggle. And that it's not even just trauma or any of these things that qualify the struggle. Sometimes it's simply, and actually most of the times, it's simply culture, right? Like culture can really destroy things if it's not the right culture. It trains you how to think. I mean, what did Jesus come saying? Metanoia, repent, right? For the kingdom of God is at hand. Well, repent from what? The way you're currently thinking. Turn and think a new way. He told that to the Jews. I mean, think about that. So he's saying, hey, you got to change the way you're thinking right now, guys. And it's like culture can teach us how to think a way that is incongruent to really the kingdom.
That's good. Man, there are a lot of other things we could get into here, but I want people to read the book. So where can they get a hold of that? And I know you have a website as well, so maybe give that information for people that want to pick up the book and should, and then want to look at the other things that you're into.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to do something special for this group. So first thing is anyone who you just like, maybe don't have enough context yet, you want to learn just a little bit more. If you text the word kingdom to this number, 55544, right? 55544. When you do that, you're going to get the first 3 chapters for free. I drew a blank for a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, first 3 chapters for free. Just read them, check them out. It'll get to you right away. I mean, we're just talking about a download on your phone. So you can read it and then be like, wow, I got to see how this thing starts to come together even more. So that's something I wanted to do there. And then, yeah, my website has a lot of resources and different things to help. So adamfjones.com. I'm not positioned as a military ministry, even though I do partner with chaplains and things like that. It's more of a business to equip leaders, but to do it God's way, right?
Yeah, that's great. And then the book, can that be purchased on Amazon, off your website? What's the best place there?
Yeah, the website's great. It helps me a lot, but I want you guys to get whatever works for you best. So go to Amazon as well. Any of those, Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, great.
I partnered with a book publisher out in Florida. That's just been great, making everything available. So yeah, either way is fine. But I will say, this is pretty key. The book is called, I got to give you the subtitle because who knew that there was another book called Weapons of Mass Deception?
Is it really? No kidding.
Yeah, I'm like, what? It's like not the same thing at all. But anyways, so this is Weapons of Mass Deception, Detect and Defeat the 4 weapons destroying your peace, purpose, and power. And if you want more peace, more purpose, more power in this stage of your life, this is so key. I'm telling you, I didn't write this for me. I hated writing this book. This book sucked to write for quite a while. But I just felt an assignment, and I needed to complete it.
That's good. Adam, really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, this conversation, and I'm glad that you persevered. I don't always do a great job, but you did a great job, so thank you for making this happen. I really appreciate just the time and the book. Man, definitely encourage everyone to go and check out that book. Text to 55544, is that right?
Yep, you got it. Yep.
55544, get those chapters, and then don't stop there. Go ahead and order the book. That'd be great. Adam, thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
Grateful for that interview. I hope that was an encouragement to you as well. There's so much more we could talk about there, and perhaps we'll have the opportunity to have another conversation. But please check out Adam's book. He wanted me to mention, and I may have said this wrong when we were talking, I'm not sure. But if you text kingdom to 55444, kingdom to 55444, you will get a downloadable version of the first 3 chapters of this book, and that hopefully will encourage you then to get the rest of the book. I would encourage you, just go and get the book, Weapons of Mass Deception. You can find that on Adam's website or on all of the other places that you can find books. So please go and check that out. When you're done listening to this podcast, go over to Life Audio, lifeaudio.com. You will find, of course, our podcast and so many others. Great content that can be an encouragement and a help to you. So please check that out. Share this with others. This is a conversation that other people need to hear, and I encourage you to check to share this out with them. That helps the show, of course, but that is a very easy way for you to help other people. So please go ahead and take a moment to do that, and that would be fantastic. I will encourage you today as we conclude, just as I do every week, that when the bullets are flying your direction, when life seems out of control, when the world around you is falling apart, you only have 2 options. Will you stay where you are and die, or will you march? The choice is always yours. Many of our veterans feel they need to fight their battles alone. This self-isolation has led to the staggering statistic of more than 20 veterans taking their lives every day. The mission of Mighty Oaks is to eradicate the veteran suicide epidemic and help our warriors change their legacies. We've been able to help over 4,000 veterans and first responders by equipping them with the tools they need to live the lives they were created to live. Our faith-based, peer-to-peer approach has one of the highest success rates of any program available today, offering hope and understanding to those who need it most. By aligning their lives to biblical principles, these men and women are able to lead their families, their communities, and our nation. It's your generosity that can make a difference in the lives of the men and women who have fought for our country and our freedoms. Now that they're home, don't let them fight alone. Learn more at mightyoaksprograms.org.